Hi there, I'm Kylie Mowbray-Allen from Hello Media.
And I'm Jenni Walke from Elephant in the Room Consulting, and you're tuning into Bite-Sized Business Live Podcast, the show that helps business owners get clarity and insight to grow their dream business.
Whether you're launching, ready to scale, or figuring out what's next, we discuss the nitty-gritty, the hard bits, the opportunities, and the behind the scenes, and share how we've grown our own companies and helped others do the same.
We're glad you're here. Good morning, everyone. This is Jenni Walke from Elephant in the Room Consulting and Kylie Mowbray-Allen from Hello Media, and you're tuning into Bite-Sized Business, the live podcast and show that helps business owners gain clarity and insight into their business dreams. And today I'm very excited, Kylie, because we're playing in your world today around ChatGPT and AI for writing. But tell me a little bit how your week's been.
I'm having a little chuckle about the playing in your world. Yes, I have been delving big time into that world, but as far as my week goes, it's been a great week. Thank you, Jenny. It's been a very, very productive week. And what about you? I've been thinking about you yesterday with the official so-called Australia Day and what all that means.
Yeah. Oh, well, yesterday, I mean, for us, it's kind of, it's just a day. I actually worked half the day yesterday, so I was working even though it's a public holiday. We just had some family stuff in the afternoon, but it's a funny day for a lot of people because, you know, a lot of companies at the moment are really starting to recognize that day, the celebration of that day is no longer relevant to our modern culture. And I think there's a lot of debate around that. But we're not saying don't celebrate being Australian and don't celebrate being part of this amazing country. What we're saying is don't have it on that day. And so I think it's a great opportunity for debate and conversation, but it's also, as one of my clients say, it's a day to educate, not celebrate. And it's a day where we can say, you know, why is this day a challenge for many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples? What is the issues that it raises, and what is a different day we can do it? But you've got people like Telstra, you know, CEO of Telstra who chose to work and gave her staff the opportunity to say, if you want to take that day, you can, but you can take a public holiday within 4 weeks of the 26th of January, and you can choose that to celebrate and have a day for your family or to do what you want to do. So I think businesses are starting to recognize that, yeah, it's not a day to celebrate anymore, maybe a day of reflection.
Yes, it's a super interesting one, isn't it? I watched a lot last night, different clips on YouTube coming at it from different angles. I really get those that have got their citizenship and that's the day that they get it. So that for them is, you know, they've come here, they're embracing this country, they love it, and that's the day that they want to celebrate that. But even that, why is that happening on that day? It just feels
changed that. I don't know if you saw.
No.
Yeah, so there's a couple of councils that are now saying actually, you know, they've actually given the authority or the permission to actually hold citizenship ceremonies. I think it's up to 3 or 4 days either side of the 26th of January now. So you don't actually, the citizenship ceremonies don't have to be on that day anymore. So even that is a move to recognize that, you know, around this time, sure, celebrating one day. I love the idea of having one day that people become Australian citizens. I think that's really special. But having that opportunity to say, well, a council or a location doesn't have to do it on the 26th of January anymore, really is an indication that we're starting to change.
Great. For some time now, I've been studying, you know, what happened in the history of here, obviously not growing up here. I didn't get any of that at school, etc. And so, yeah, like the idea of celebrating yesterday just feels so offensive. And oh my word, yeah, what an interesting flip. And even Kmart, I saw, has treated the day as just, it's a nothing day, and also not selling all that Australian paraphernalia, which, let's be honest, it's bad anyway, right? It's single-use stuff that's just going into landfill, so that's a good thing as far as I'm concerned. But yes,
and I think the key about the day is people get very passionate, which is really great, and we get all this kind of feeling like, oh, I'm losing a day and don't take this away from me. But we're not asking you to lose it. We're not taking a celebration of being part of this country away. We're simply detaching it from one of the, for our people, one of the most traumatic in the start of, 200 years of genocide and separation and some policies which we're still feeling the effects of today. And so I think it's about changing the narrative from things that we're losing and taking away, and just saying, well, let's take stock and say, as a modern culture, what's the value of a day that for a large number of the population is traumatic? Why don't we find a day where we can unite the country and choose that to be Australia Day, where we actually come together as a whole nation that doesn't actually, separate us? And I think we need to, but we have so many people who like to run that kind of negative campaign and want to kind of make it divisive. And it's just an opportunity for us to stop and reflect and think, well, what's a better day? I mean, I have the same opinion, and this is rather controversial for most people, as to why we celebrate Anzac Day. I think Remembrance Day for me is a far more important day for us to celebrate. And I believe Remembrance Day should be the public holiday on the 11th of November, not the 25th of April, but having, saying change the date of Anzac Day. I'm probably going to get a lot of haters saying that, because, we're celebrating one of the worst, celebrating and remembering one of the worst days in military history, rather than let's celebrate 11th of November as the day where, the world recognized that it was time for peace. And that to me is and we can still remember, and we can still take stock of the service being by people all around the world in military service. But let's change the way we look at things, I think. And I think we're in a modern culture now where we should be questioning some of these historical practices.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Nicely put, Jenni. Nicely put. Well, for all of you listening, however you spent yesterday, I hope it was mindful and that it was right for you. With thought. There you go, mindful.
Yeah, mindful. I love that.
There you go.
But so it's an interesting thing though at the moment, right? We're talking about a modern culture. I'm going to use that as a really nice segue, because the way that we view things and the way that we do things has an opportunity to evolve and change, right? That's with everything we do. That as a coach, you do that when you're coaching your business owners. I do that with coaching my clients and my business owners or corporates. Say it's time to change and look at the world differently and see the way we do things differently, and always find new ways of working that make us a better people and a better community, a better culture, better organization, and more effective, right? So that's what we're talking about, modernizing. And to be honest, even as we're talking about AI and ChatGPT, when people go, oh no, I need to write my own captions, I need to do my own things, there's some value in using this new and modern technology, isn't there?
Huge values, but huge warnings too. So I am really excited to talk about this with you. I've been deep diving into it, and there's lots of other ones out there. There's Jasper's been around for a bit, and all kinds of different ones are out there. However, ChatGPT has just kind of come and blown things out of the water. And I don't know about you, but every day I'm getting ads coming at me on socials saying this super successful ad was written by a bot, and I'm like, what makes it super successful? Because when you read the comments, no one's actually signing up to it. They're all going, this is terrible. So it is definitely interesting. But something I think that I need to say straight off the bat is that, so first of all, ChatGPT is, it's officially a large language model chatbot developed by OpenAI, and OpenAI is Elon Musk. So that's where this particular one comes for. And it stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. And what it is, it's incredibly good at coming up with interactive kind of speech. So really conversational dialogue. And also you can make it do funny things. You can get it to write humor and all kinds of things, which is absolutely extraordinary. But one thing I want to say is that it's trained on data. It's not coming up with its own ideas. It's trained on data that's all about code and information from the internet, for example, sources like Reddit. So, and those kinds of discussions. So that's how it's trained ChatGPT to get the human style of responding. So the really important thing to remember is that none of this is unique. None of this is new. So for some, it's literally just nothing but plagiarism.
Yeah.
So one thing that's highly concerning to me is that when I'm writing a blog, for example, I will get information and get research from other places, and I will always reference it. And then, of course, that's great for them. That's a backlink, etc., because you link to where the information's come from. If you use something like any kind of AI to write your blogs, then you're not actually referencing anything. So to me, in effect, you're actually stealing content from someone else, and you're not. And then not only that, but say, Jenny, you and I are writing a blog on the same topic. You and I could have literally the exact same blog, because it's not changing it up depending on what the question was. So that's a really, really, really important one to think about.
And it's interesting because, I guess when you're doing your research and people are writing blogs or looking at the internet to kind of get information, you kind of, when you use that information, then write your own stuff, there is that, melding of your own thoughts and your own ideas and your own words into someone else's content. That's how, we develop and we learn. But that point about saying that essentially we're taking content from other people and putting it together and it's not our own, and that you can end up with somebody, if you don't make any changes to it, you can end up with something that someone else is, going to produce at the same time. It's
literally just copying answers from people on the internet.
Yes,
so that is extremely, extremely concerning. But there's a few other things as well. So, for example, one of the things is that Google has these other bots. I'm just trying to remember the name off the top of my head, but I can't, but I'll find it in 1 second. Bot detection tools. So you will be penalized for the content that you use that is from a bot. So that's the most important thing I think I can say today, is that use it as a tool for ideas. Don't use it for content. And they've created it for you to use for content. The way that they're advertising it all is to use it for content, but that is highly, highly dangerous. And where you can go down the Google search ladder is just off to Timbuktu, and you won't be found because you're being penalized. And then what does that do to the rest of your content and to your site's authority in general? So you've got to be incredibly careful with that. And that, of course, is not just for Google. That's, for your YouTube captions and all your things. Like, there's bots scanning bots. So yeah, I cannot say enough how much you've got to think about is, this is not going to change my life because I no longer have to write. You can think, this is going to change my life because it's a tool to help me with ideas.
And I think that's really important. I love the way you kind of clarified that, because I know there's a lot of people are saying, well, I'll just actually, use the chat. It'll create my blog and I'll just put that up straight away and I don't need to make any changes. And we're starting to look at exploring that, because obviously with the amount of content and the work we're doing, we're thinking how do we actually get some of those new ideas and generate that when we're constantly busy, particularly on topics that we don't talk a lot about all the time, but our clients are interested in. And so our team are looking to do it, but they're doing exactly that. They're looking for ideas and then saying, okay, well, what are the elements of this that we're going to take? And what are the things that we're going to discard? What do we agree with? What don't we? And your point about the Reddit piece, because we know that there's such a diverse range of views on something like Reddit. If you're pulling that content, you don't really know you don't know the authorship, you don't know the veracity, you don't know how true that content is. So if you're relying on chatbot, so things like the AIs to do statistics or content, that's where you start to be dangerous. It starts to get quite dangerous, doesn't it?
Totally. So I wrote this list of pros and cons, but a couple of things that I really want to mention today, which is it cannot comprehend the meaning of the words that it's producing. So given that the context and intent of a communication may not be comprehended, then it can result in it producing replies that are completely unrelated to its output. So let's just use the example of VAs, and both you and I have amazing and fabulous VAs, but English is not their first language. So then if they are then relying on, and luckily that would not be your team or my team, but for VAs out there, and especially for business owners who are not then going through the content that they're creating before they're then publishing it, because they're like, oh, well, it was done on chatbots, sweet as. But the problem is it can be very often absolutely the wrong content, so and the wrong intent, which is massively problematic. The other thing is it lacks the ability to learn. So just like every other language model, as a result, even when the context is altered, the user may still receive the same response.
Yeah.
Good. Also, it's really got this ability to make assumptions when vague questions are asked, which can lead to it giving answers that are not in any way tailored to suit the user's input. That's just a few of my notes in there. And I think that's just so important to think about. Let's take this from a medical perspective. So let's say that you were writing a blog post on how 3 years after the pandemic started, how do you feel that businesses have been affected by COVID-19? Wow, imagine what it could come back with you with then. And so it's not thinking, is it? It's just coming out with the information that it's seen in other places. So is that going to be resonating with where you're at? Have you actually done your research as well, or are you just relying on, what it's coming up with? The other thing is those answers are available to anyone. So we're all going to write the exact same article or same caption or same blog post or whatever. So that's massively, massively problematic too.
And as you're talking, I'm thinking, so why would we do this? Why would we not just write our own content? Why not, if you're using it for ideas and then we're going, okay, we're now going to have to review it, we're going to check it, we're going to rewrite most of it, we're going to pull it out. So why spend the time with all the penalties?
Well, I'll tell you why, because it's actually, I don't know about you, but I certainly have days where I'm feeling flat and lacking in creativity, yet I've got a whole lot of content to keep pumping out. And particularly when it comes to the other side of our business, which is social media management, we've got to come up with ideas constantly. So I've been playing around with it with clients. And I also taught a workshop on it last week, which was really fun for everyone to try it out. And it came up with some really silly stuff, but some really fun stuff. And so I'll give you a little example. So I was working with one of our clients who is a floral designer and teaches floral design. So I said, how about this one? Let's type in taglines for floral designers business. And it came up with some beautiful things like bringing beauty to life one step at a time, creating art with flowers, transforming spaces with natural beauty. There was heaps and heaps of things it was coming up with, which actually he was like, oh, I hadn't thought of that one. Or yeah, that sort of makes sense, but you'd need to mix that up a bit or whatever. And I'm like, good, I'm glad you said that straight off the bat, that you need to mix that up. So I think, Jenni, why we would want to use it is for ideas. I think it's definitely awesome for that, but that's what I think it should be called. It should be called Ideas Generator or something, but it's not.
I think that's the thing. I mean, the key takeaway for today is use it, have a play with it. I said we'd use it. I've had days like that where I've just been a bit flat and we've had a quote and I've got, what does that mean to me? Or I want to go, I'm trying to think of 5 new benefits of, I know all the benefits of coaching or doing the workshop that we do. We know that, but we start to use the same language all the time and we want a different way of saying the same thing, right? And so I've been using it to get, I hadn't thought of saying that this benefit that way or this feature in that way, but it's just changing the way our language a little bit.
Yes.
To see what's available. We love that. But I do think that caution around making sure that you don't end up just copying and pasting what the chatbot or the chat AI has told you should use, and really, prosecute and look through the data a little bit more to say, well, which bits work for me, which bits don't, and use it as that inspiration rather than replacing your own thoughts.
Indeed. And, the other day I used it. We were writing a blog for a client and the topic was all around why you should switch to natural-based products for your skin. And so, with research, we've done this fabulous job, and then I thought, I'm just going to jump onto ChatGPT, type that question in and see what it comes up with, just in case there was something new that I hadn't thought about. And there was one thing in there. So we'd already mentioned, for example, antibacterial and blah, 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 all these different things, but there was one extra thing. I can't even remember what it was right now. And I went, good point. And so off I went. But one of the things that it came up with, which was 100% wrong, is that because it's natural, it will always be cheaper than its synthetic alternative. And I'm like, no, that is never going to be the case. Well, certainly not here in Australia. So that was 100% wrong. And then as you keep reading, it really had a massive focus on that. And I'm like, oh, that's dangerous then, isn't it? Because if I just copied and pasted and off I went, then I would completely be barking up the wrong tree. So that's definitely not good. So I think the thing to remember is that those answers may not be natural nor reality based, and that is huge. Plus, it often overuses words, and that can be really problematic as well, because then it doesn't come across as very natural. Well, that's what I'm finding. But I want to tell you about this article that a friend of mine wrote. She's a lecturer at a uni in Victoria, and she has written this thing. I'll just read you this thing. So it was in The Guardian, and it says, lecturer detects bot use in 1/5 of assessments as concerns mount over AI in exams. So Deakin University's Sally Brandon says technology is not going away as educators strive to adapt to use of software such as ChatGPT. Massive, massive problem. So she says it's caused internal alarm for its ability to evade plagiarism detection tools. The software that Brandon uses detects a range of bot assistants, including software that helps improve AI-generated text. So we're thinking of this in terms of business, right? But look at it out there, like, that's just intense. I hadn't even thought of that, Jenny, that people are now at uni just going, oh, well, there's my assignment written.
Well, it's interesting when my partner was looking at doing some online learning last year, when you actually upload your assessment, there's actually a period of time that actually goes through and checks for plagiarism. And so when you're up, and I guess that is essentially using the same technology, isn't it? You would upload it, and it would go through, and you had to get a certain pass level. It would say, okay, yes, there's a couple of areas which are copy and paste, but then it would look for the reference and go, okay, yes, you've said this, but we can see that you've referenced and it's in context of what you're doing. So you might be quoting somebody specifically, but even if you're quoting, there was a maximum amount of quotes that you could have in your content, because it was checking to see how much you'd literally just copied and pasted. And then, as we know, I've seen people do, here's a quote and my one sentence that refers to that, but I'm not actually providing any value to that. But I didn't even think about it until you mentioned that that's essentially an AI tool testing to see where we've copied and pasted from the web. But yeah, I think there's a big push at the moment for people to use it and students to use it for assignments. But again, the same rules apply. Don't use it for inspiration, use it to help you, but don't rely on its accuracy.
Absolutely, it's so important. So I'll read you this. So I've been in lots of different, the groups that I'm in, where they're having big discussions on it. So it's been really, really fascinating. And this one guy said, you should know that search engines like Google use AI scanners to check for plagiarism and automated writing. The best way to make use of these AI tools is to sit back, let the technology handle the grunt work, while you then repurpose the content in your own unique way. So I think that's the really important thing. Like I was saying before, ideas, tools, that kind of thing, so incredibly important, that I guess that's the message, is just don't just use it without being very, very careful in how you use it.
Yeah, and I think that's with every piece of technology, whether it's using images from Canva, or using tools that develop your social media, or anything, any content that you're not developing yourself. You've just got to be mindful: is it fit for purpose? Are you crediting where your credit's due? Are you ensuring the stats are correct and the information is correct, and also the context of it to you? But don't just copy and paste it, make it your own. I think that's the message you're sharing with us today, is if you're going to use these tools, use it for that inspiration and ideas and idea generation, but make it your own. Take that and create something that's yours, rather than something that, as you said, that's not natural, or doesn't, in some cases, wrong.
Absolutely. I think, Jenny, that we should bring this up as a topic for discussion in another couple of months and see where it's gone, because all the stuff I'm reading is that it's going to be, what they're building to detect it is going to be stronger and more powerful than ever, combating it. So yeah, it's not a case of, oh good, I don't need help with that anymore. I'm seeing all the time people saying, I don't need a copywriter anymore, I don't need a content writer. It's like, well, yes you do. Because someone's going to edit the bot. So yeah, I'd say that the next couple of months are going to be very interesting, how all this plays out. So yeah,
most definitely. So I reckon, I think that's a great idea. It's January now, maybe next quarter, the start of next quarter, we'll come back and say, okay, what's happening? What are the new tools around? Have we been using them? How are they working? And what are the our cautionary tales that we can share in 3
Yes.
months' time after we know that people have been using it.
Absolutely. And I'll put a link to Sally's article in there because it's really fascinating. So
yeah, that would be amazing because I think the cool thing about that, the coming from a lecturing perspective, is understanding, well, what is the broader impact of it, not just for work? What is that broader impact that it's going to have on all aspects of our life, not just on socials? But I'm imagining people writing reports and for businesses and training content using this tool, and so many risks associated with that.
So many. I'm in the middle of writing a blog at the moment about it, and I've got all sorts of screenshots from things I've been reading of people's comments in groups and stuff. It's fascinating. So I'll put a link in the caption of this once it's up on YouTube, and
that's amazing
stuff. So yeah, I'll let you know when that's updated or finished. So good to chat with you today, Jenni. Big morning. So there you go, the pros, the cons, and the ugly. But yeah, so great to chat with you.
And great. And for those who are tuning in, listening to this episode of Bite Size Business, we'd love to hear your comments either on our Facebook page, on our socials, or even on the podcast chat. But make sure you subscribe and follow us so you know when our next chat's going to be about this and other fabulous Bite Size Business information. So, and make sure you don't miss any of our future episodes. But also, you can go back and listen to this if you've missed it live, which is also great. But thanks, Kylie, for today. It's great to see you. Great to chat. We look forward to chatting to you next week. And everyone, thanks so much for listening.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Jenni. Bye, everyone.
Bye.